Hi you guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, welcome. If you are a subscriber, thanks for subscribing to my channel. And I just pray that my stories and testimonies and just videos just help increase your faith. And I'm not really good at like saying the intro thing each time. I was thinking about this before I even got on here. I just kind of feel like a regular person, kind of just talking to myself, because if you don't really know much about like my life, or which if you're watching this for the first time, like obviously you don't, but I just don't have a lot of people around. And my dog is playing with his toys if there's noise in the background, but yeah, so I don't know, this is like super therapeutic for me, and I am passionate about like teaching and sharing what the Lord allows me to share, and just some of what I have received, I guess, from scripture, because I didn't really have anybody to help teach me or kind of like encourage me to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. So that is how this channel all came about, I guess. So yeah, I am, I guess, doing a little bit better than I was a couple days ago. I don't know, I think the longer that I like go on, I guess, with this journey from like my very first video and like, I guess a couple of years ago, I am very hard on myself. That is one thing that I feel like I am learning to, I guess, give myself a little bit more grace with. I really hope that you guys can hear me, because he's not going to stop. Yeah, I'm really hard on myself. And I think because I have specific standards for myself, at times I can be too hard on myself, but then I also kind of find myself, I guess, like putting those standards on other people at times when they may not even have them for themselves. So that is something that I am kind of learning about myself and walking through and working through, if you will. And yeah, so I have a lot of like really good stories, and maybe I'll do that in the video after this, but I'm just thinking about like how God has brought animals into my life, and they have honestly, like, I'm confident to say that animals have kept me out of depression. Like, I know that may be a little bit extreme for some people, but I don't really want to go into detail, because that's just not what this video is about. But I really think that they have. Like, I think that like getting up and like caring for something, and just they're funny, they're goofy, they each have their own personality. It teaches you patience. So I am very grateful for my puppy, and that is what you hear in the background. So hopefully he'll chill out, but this is just how my life is now. So he's amazing. But yeah, so I hope that you guys have been doing well, and I don't know, I just don't really like, I don't know, I guess I just don't feel like, I don't know, like, you know how you listen to sermons, and I don't know if it's different for men, but like you just like feel like you don't, like you're not worthy of, like, I don't know. So which I know that's like the whole point. Anyway, we're just gonna go ahead and begin, because I'm just like in my feels right now, I guess. So yeah, I'm going to read chapter 40 and 41 of Genesis. I'm actually kind of proud of myself for like sticking with this. It has taken quite a while, but you know, here we are. Yeah, there's 50 chapters total. So we are on 40 and 41. And I am reading out of the NLT Bible, and I'm gonna go ahead and start. Okay. This is Joseph interprets two dreams, starting with chapter 40, verse 1. Sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker offended their royal master. I guess I'm back to my norm, yawning. Pharaoh became angry with these two officials, and he put them in the prison where Joseph was, in the palace of the captain of the guard. They remained in prison for quite some time, and the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, who looked after them. While they were in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each had a dream one night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed that they both looked upset. "Why do you look so worried today?" he asked them. So, if you have watched the previous video, one of the things that kind of stuck out to me was that, like, when Joseph was around people, it just says, like, people didn't worry because Joseph was around, or Joseph's presence caused people not to worry, I guess, as much as they would on their own. So he's asking them, I just kind of had that highlighted, and he was like, "Why do you look so worried today?" So basically the cupbearer and chief baker had, they've been thrown into prison, and they had these dreams, and they are now worried because they do not know what the dreams mean. Verse 8. And they replied, "We both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what they mean." "Interpreting dreams is God's business," Joseph replied. "Go ahead and tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream first. "In my dream," he said, sorry, you guys, I am tired, but I have a lot of things to do today. Okay. Where was I? "In my dream," he said, "I saw a grapevine in front of me. The vine had 3 branches that began to bud and blossom, and soon it produced clusters of ripe grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's wine cup in my hand, so I took a cluster of grapes and squeezed the juice into the cup. Then I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. This is what the dream means," Joseph said. 3 branches represent 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as his chief cupbearer. And please remember me and do me a favor when things go well for you. Mention me to Pharaoh so he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve it." When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given the first dream such a positive interpretation, he said to Joseph, "I had a dream too. In my dream, there were 3 baskets of white pastry stacked on my head. The top basket contained all kinds of pastries for Pharaoh, but the birds came and ate them from the basket on my head." "This is what the dream means," Joseph told him. "The 3 baskets also represent 3 days. 3 days from now, Pharaoh will lift you up and impale your body on a pole. Then birds will come and peck away at your flesh." Pharaoh's birthday came 3 days later, and he prepared a banquet for all of his officials and staff. He summoned his chief cupbearer and chief baker to join the other officials. He then restored the chief cupbearer to his former position so he could again hand Pharaoh his cup. But Pharaoh impaled the chief baker just as Joseph had predicted when he interpreted his dream. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. Okay, so these people work for Pharaoh, obviously. They are in prison with Joseph, and they have these dreams that cause them to obviously look worried because Joseph's like, "Okay, like, why do you guys look like that?" You know? He didn't say it like that, but that's just kind of where I'm at. And so Joseph tells the men that interpreting dreams is God's business. So the fact that they replied, "We both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what they mean," means that they were searching for the answers for their dreams. They're searching for meaning from these dreams. Sorry, my dog just... It's fine. They were searching for the meaning of these dreams, but they weren't asking the Lord. Like, they weren't asking anybody filled with the Spirit of God. So, anybody that communicated with God, like the true God. So, nobody was able to tell them the answers. So, Joseph was able to tell the chief cupbearer his dream, and because that dream seemed so positive, the chief baker, was like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to ask him, what my dream means. And so I know, like, I don't know, depending on who you are and where you are in your relationship with the Lord, but it just sticks out to me that, like, the chief baker may have just wanted to know. Obviously, he wanted to know what his dream meant, but he was probably encouraged to ask about his dream because somebody had previously asked and theirs was positive. And so he did not have a positive outcome, and that is exactly what Joseph told them both. They told them what their dreams meant, and what Joseph said actually happened. So Joseph's one request was for the chief cupbearer to remember Joseph when he went back to Pharaoh, because he was basically in prison for nothing. Okay, so chapter 41. This is Pharaoh's dreams. I just have to say, like, the first 4 words of this chapter are like written in a box that I emphasize, because it says 2 full years later. So I already kind of know what's going to happen in this piece of it, but I just, like, this is just my house. 2 years later, that is a long, I know that's not a long time for some people. I've never been in jail, and I'll be honest, I don't know if I would survive in a jail. That's just not, no, I don't think I would, honestly. But I just cannot imagine waiting 2 years, like, to be out of a prison. And patience is something that God has really been working with me on, like patience with myself, patience with other people, patience with things, patience with promises, patience with people and how they act, and I don't know. Like, that is 2 years is a long time. I don't even know. So that's a big deal for me. And not to get sidetracked, but I know that I'm not the only person, like, waiting on things, like, from the Lord. And if I can just be really honest, like, it's not easy to wait on God. Like, I mean, I love Amazon Prime, and I love the fact that I can just click something and it'll show up at my doorstep in 2 days. Like, I love the fact that I might be able to pay a little bit extra and it'll be at my house tonight. Like, and maybe that's just, like, the spoiled brat in me, or maybe that's just, like, society, but, and I'm thinking about a friend in particular. We were literally just talking about this morning, and I guess I want to be transparent about the complexity and how hard it is to wait on the Lord for something. And I just, like, I feel like there's a lot of people that be like, oh, wait on the Lord. And, like, they give you these, like, little, like, cliche, like, coffee mug things to do, but it's hard. And so I don't know if that, I play these back. Maybe that'll just encourage my heart and my spirit, but it is really hard, especially when it's something that you really want, or something that you didn't think that you were ever going to be able to achieve or have, and, like, it's something that God has promised you. whether it's financial, whether you're moving, whether it's a baby, whether it's a car, whether it's a house, like whether you want to get married, whether you are waiting for someone to be saved, like, just whatever that thing is for you. Just know that you are not alone in that, because it can also feel very isolating, because if the people around you don't have enough faith for what you're waiting on, then it just seems harder than the initial wait or promise. So back to the word. Okay. Chapter 41. 2 full years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing on the bank of the Nile River. In his dream, he saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up out of the river and began grazing in the marsh grass. Then he saw 7 more cows come up behind them from the Nile, but these were scrawny and thin. These cows stood beside the fat cows on the riverbank. Then the scrawny, thin cows ate the 7 healthy, fat cows. At this point in the dream, Pharaoh woke up. But he fell asleep again and had a second dream. This time he saw 7 heads of grain, plump and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were shriveled and withered by the east wind. And these thin heads swallowed up the 7 plump, well-formed heads. Then Pharaoh woke up again and realized it was a dream. The next morning, Pharaoh was very disturbed by the dreams, so he called for the magicians and wise men of Egypt. When Pharaoh told them his dreams, not one of them could tell them what they meant. Similar to the 2 previous guys, like the magicians and wise men could not tell these people what their dreams meant, because dreams, that's something that you want to go to God about. Finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. Today I have been reminded of my failure, he told Pharaoh. Some time ago you were angry with the chief baker. So sorry. And me, and you imprisoned us in the palace of the captain of the guard. One night the chief baker and I each had a dream. Each dream had its own meaning. There was a young Hebrew man with us in the prison who was a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he told us what each of our dreams meant, and everything happened just as he predicted. I was restored to my position as cupbearer, and the chief baker was executed and impaled on a pole. So remember, Joseph wanted to be freed from prison and basically asked, hey, once you get out there, blah, 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 can you remember me? And he did it. And then 2 years later, Pharaoh has a dream or has these dreams. And now the chief cupbearer is like, oh, wow, I forgot about Joseph. And he is the person that can interpret or help interpret the meaning of these dreams. So verse 14. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once. He was quickly brought from the prison. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means, but I have heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it. It is beyond my power to do this, Joseph replied, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. So each time that these people mention dreams, they're like, oh, you can interpret dreams or blah, 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 blah. And Joseph continues to remind them, it's not him interpreting the dream, or it's not his ability or task or wisdom to interpret the dream. It's God that is allowing him to have that skill or gift or communication, if you will. Verse 17. So Pharaoh told Joseph his dream. In my dream, he said, I was standing on the bank of the Nile River, and I saw 7 fat, healthy cows come out of the river and began grazing in the marsh grass. But then I saw 7 sick-looking cows, scrawny and thin, come up after them. I've never seen such sorry-looking animals in all the land of Egypt. These thin, scrawny cows ate the 7 fat cows. But afterwards you wouldn't have known it, for they were still as thin and scrawny as before. Then I woke up. In my dream I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were blighted, shriveled, and withered by the east wind. And the shriveled heads swallowed the 7 healthy heads. I told these dreams to the magicians, but no one could tell me what they mean. Joseph responded, both of Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows and 7 healthy heads of grain both represent 7 years of prosperity. The 7 thin, scrawny cows that came up later and 7 thin heads of grain withered by the east wind represent 7 years of famine. This will happen just as I have described it, for God has revealed to Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt, but afterwards there will be 7 years of famine so great that all the prosperity will be forgotten in Egypt. Famine will destroy the land. This famine will be so severe that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having 2 similar dreams, this means that these events have been decreed by God and he will soon make them happen. Therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh should appoint supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring it to Pharaoh's storehouses. Store it away and guard it so there will be food in the cities. That way there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, this famine will destroy the land. Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory. And so with these dreams and Pharaoh's leadership, God has used Joseph to give Pharaoh instructions for what he is supposed to do, to basically prepare himself for what the Lord is about to do on the land. I'm not going to go into huge detail about this because this isn't like something that I guess like the Lord told me to say, but it is knowledge that I would say I'm, I guess, privy to. If you have a relationship with the Lord, this may be something that you want to pray about, as far as just like getting yourself and your family and just prepared for whatever is about to happen in the next coming seasons or months or whatever. I don't even know the time frame. If you're watching this video and you don't have a relationship with God, none of us are perfect. I don't care what anybody looks like, what they sound like, how much money they have, how much money they don't have. Nobody is perfect. But if you do not have a relationship with God, it is very important, obviously for your salvation and just your soul and your heart, that you grow a relationship with Christ, but also for your safety. And I know I've said that before. I don't want to go off on a tangent about something that is not, I guess, like my place to say on this channel, because it wouldn't be something that God, I guess, like God did not instruct me to come on here and like warn anybody. Like that's not, I guess, that's just not, and if he did, I would have done it. Like that's just not what I'm doing. So, but I do encourage you to pray about food, water, what you should or shouldn't be doing. Like I just encourage you to pray about that for yourself, if any of that spoke to you, made sense to you, whatever. Okay, we're wrapping this up. So verse 37, Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man, obviously filled with the Spirit of God? What kills me about this is that like these people are admitting that this man is full of the Spirit of God, but they're like, it's so bizarre, but it is so real in reality, because how many people do you know, my dog is playing and he's moving this camera, that like he's like, oh, who can we find that's like obviously filled with the Spirit of God? So they want to use his gift and anointing and put him in a place of leadership, but like they are still not getting God for themselves. Like they still have no desire to like get to know the Lord for themselves. Verse 39, then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly no one else is as intelligent and as wise as you are. You'll be in charge of my court and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a rank higher than yours. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in fine linen clothing and hung a gold chain around his neck. And then he had Joseph ride in the chariot reserved for his second in command, and wherever Joseph went, the command was shouted, "Kneel down." So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all Egypt. And Pharaoh said to him, "I am Pharaoh, but no one will lift a hand or foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval." So he's basically saying, like, I'm a leader, but nothing's going to operate without Joseph's approval, without his yay or nay, or say so, and what is going on in Egypt. Then Pharaoh gave Joseph a new Egyptian name. I'll take a moment and try to pronounce that. Zaphanath Paneah. Sure. He also gave him a wife whose name was Asenath. That sounded terrible. Asenath? I have no idea what her name is. She was the daughter of Potiphar, I don't know, the priest of On. So Joseph took charge of the entire land of Egypt. He was 30 years old when he began serving in the court of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And when Joseph left Pharaoh's presence, he inspected the entire land of Egypt. 47. As predicted, for 7 years, the land produced bumper crops. During those years, Joseph gathered all the crops grown in Egypt, and he stored the grain from the surrounding fields in the cities. He piled up huge amounts of grain like sand on the seashore. Finally, he stopped keeping records because there was too much to measure. During this time, before the first of the famine years, 2 sons were born to Joseph and his wife, Asenath. I feel bad calling her like Asnath. Like that's terrible. The daughter of Potiphar. Okay, and I read this yesterday, and I prayed and I was like, okay, God, like I've read this a lot. Like, can I just like, I guess, read something different? You know how wild it would be to know that a famine is coming and then you have 2 babies? That just like, I don't know. That just really spoke to me because it literally says, during this time, before the first of the famine years, 2 sons were born to Joseph and his wife. So you're like preparing for this famine and you have 2 babies and they're boys, and boys do eat a lot. But I just thought that was wild. So anyway, verse 51, Joseph named his older son Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family. Joseph named his second son Ephraim, for he said, God has made me fruitful in the land of my grief. Sheesh. All right, 53. At last, the 7 years of bumper crops, the land of Egypt, came to an end. Then the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had predicted. The famine also struck the surrounding countries, but throughout Egypt there was plenty of food. Eventually, however, the famine spread throughout the land of Egypt as well. And when the people cried out to Pharaoh for food, he told them, go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you. So with severe famine everywhere, Joseph opened up the storehouses and distributed grain to the Egyptians. For the famine was severe throughout the land of Egypt, and people from all around came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe throughout the world. And that is 40 and 41. So Joseph has made it out of prison. Thankfully, because of what he did while he was in the prison, like he was remembered finally 2 years later, and he has now been made ruler of Egypt. And has basically helped prepare everyone for a famine. So that is the end of chapter 42. And thank you guys if you have made it to the end of this video. And yeah, the story of Joseph is a wild one. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.